Now, the main takeaway that I want you to get from this lesson is that when I'm composing a chord progression, or in this case making an arrangement of an existing melody, really one of my main criteria is that I'm trying to satisfy both the heart and the head. What do I mean by that? Well, I want to have some sophisticated sections, I want some tritone substitution in there, I want some advanced chord voicings, some jazz chords, and I want all of these sophisticated sounds in my arrangement, so that's how I satisfy the brain or the head. But I also want some emotional sounds in there, so I want to satisfy the heart as well. And the way that I do that is I make sure there's some diatonic sections, some simple sections where we use just some simple diatonic chords, more like a pop song. And really, as a composer, that's what I'm usually trying to do, is I want to have both of these sounds and to create contrast between them. Because when I first started learning jazz, I used to think that to create a sophisticated sound, I had to use the most sophisticated chord voicings on every single chord. And I thought that by doing that, I'd create a really sophisticated sounding arrangement. However, that's not actually how it works. When you do that, all that happens is the ear gets used to this sound of sophistication, and after about 10 chords it just gets used to this sound and it's no longer effective anymore. So what I found is that it's much more effective to create contrast between these very simple diatonic chords. But then there's other sections in this arrangement where I'll use my jazz techniques. And by contrasting the two, you create a really listenable arrangement and you're satisfying both the head and the heart. And I really think those are the best compositions when you get both of these elements in it, because some composers, they just do the sophisticated stuff and it just leaves you feeling a bit cold. Whereas on the other hand, other people just do the pop sort of chords. And after a while, it just feels a bit empty, feels a bit cliche, and it doesn't really add up to much. So personally, as a composer, I like to combine the two, and that's the main point that I want you to take away from this lesson. You'll see that I'm really going back and forth between these two sounds. Simple diatonic chords mixed with some advanced jazz piano techniques. Okay, so let's go through this from beginning to end. Starts off very simply with a diatonic sound. And here's that sophistication. This is a nice voicing for a D minor 7 chord. Actually, it's a D minor 9 chord. And really, this is one of my favorite voicings, which is a Kenny Barron 11th voicing, where you have a stack of fifths in the left hand and a stack of fifths in the right hand, built from the third of the chord. So F, C, G. Normally, this is how I would play this chord, but in this case I actually cut off the top note, and the only reason I cut it off is I'm making a melody and I wanted it to go down to a C. Back to diatonic. Very simple voicings here, just the root and the third. So next up in this arrangement, I switch the voices, so it gets a bit tiring if the piano is just playing everything, the melody and the chords. So from an arranging perspective, I wanted to change the voice here, and I actually pre-recorded a synth part which plays the melody here. And then in my piano playing, I go from being in the foreground and I switch to being a background sort of part. And I just play these very quiet jazz chords. B flat major 7. G minor 9, going to D minor 9. It's just got a little lick here. Then I switch the chords, I do a G minor 9, going to B flat major, a stack of fifths, and then a stack of fourths from the major third, going back to a D minor 11. So for this section, I really had to tone down everything that I'd like to play on the piano. Originally, I wanted to play this. So why do you think I toned down the piano? Well, from an arrangement point of view, I wasn't being a team player. I was basically trying to take all the attention with my piano playing. And it just distracted the listener away from the actual melody, which is being played on the synthesizer. So as a musician, you have to be a team player. You have to know when the music's supposed to be focused on someone else, and when it's focused on someone else, you have to tone down everything that you're playing. So in this case, I just took the background roll, just played very simple chords, and I played them quietly. And the other thing when arranging is you want to make sure that your chords aren't in the same frequency range as the melody. So in this case, the melody is playing . So it's in this sort of range. So my chord voicings, I try to keep fairly low. I try to keep below this melody. Instead of spreading out. So as a jazz piano player, I'm also thinking about where the melody is. I'm trying to keep my voicings below this note. And notice how I'm sort of delaying, I'm adding some space in there. Negative space just means sort of gaps, a sort of breathing space. That's also very effective for arranging. You know, you don't have to hold down piano notes all of the time. You can take your hands off. So now let's take a look at the chorus. Again, this is one of those more emotional points in the music. These are very pop chords. B flat major, C major, going to D minor. I'm using a nice open voicing where you play root, fifth, and third. It's a nice way of spreading out the chord. Now this is one of my favorite modulations. This is a change of key. We go from D minor, which is the original key, and then I modulate by going up a half step. I play an E flat major chord. This is not in the key of D minor. This takes us to the key of G minor. So we're now in the key of G minor for these two chords. And then we return to D minor. So what was that chord? This is a nice chord. Can you tell me what type of chord this is? We've got an A, a C sharp, a G, and a C natural. And if we include the F, we actually have an F natural as well. This is an A7 altered voicing. So we've got basically an A dominant 7 chord down here. We've got the root, the major third, and the minor 7th. And then we've got a stack of fourths up from the minor 7th. And it gives you a really nice voicing for A7 altered. In fact, if we were in different circumstances, I could continue this stack of fourths up to B flat, which would be the flat 9. Nice voicing. I resolve back to B flat major, and this is where the second verse begins. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I'd love to know what your favourite takeaway was. Just let me know in the comments below. And if this is the first video of mine you've seen, make sure you don't miss out on future videos by subscribing to my channel. Now I've also notated the sheet music to this arrangement. You can download it for free at the link below.